So, good evening, everyone. This is Demar, and I'll be talking about further validation of the genderism and transphobia scales in the Philippines. This is authored by Raymond Aquino Macapagal of the University of Philippines, Diliman. But before we talk about this article, let's discuss first the original test. So, about the original test, in their study from 2005, Hill and Willoughby noted that one of the reasons why there is contradicting information regarding people's attitudes towards transgender people is that no researchers at the time had used a thorough, dependable, or valid assessment. The majority of measurements they discovered were single item tests with weak psychometric properties and no information about how respondents responded. This inspired the authors to perform a set of three studies, the overall goal of which was to create a useful scale for assessing acts of violence, harassment, and discrimination directed at transgender people. Now, to explain that, they created a brief psychometric questionnaire for the first study that measures unfavorable views against trans people. They created 150 statements in total that may be used to gauge the affective, behavioral, and cognitive aspects of genderism, transphobia, and gender bashing. A total of 32 questionnaire items were chosen after the weaker questions were gradually removed. They attained a high reliability coefficient of 0.95, and the initial assessment of their scale's validity was similarly favorable. In their second study, they aimed to measure the GTS's reliability and validity. They discovered great reliability for the overall scale of 0.88, which is in line with the GTS's original reliability findings. The homophobia scale and the gender role belief scales were related measures that they found the GTS to have strong convergent validity too, providing providing proving rather that they are measuring related phenomena. This, however, also implies that GTS is not discriminant valid. In a third investigation, they established norms for the scale for a large group of university students, tested subscale correlation again, calculated internal reliability coefficient, and performed a confirmatory factor analysis of the subscale's structure. So if you have noticed, they have gone over the various test development processes that are, of course, known to us, and usually these steps are also done for test construction. Say, for example, in the graduate and postgraduate thesis and dissertations. So let's talk about the article. So the study described in the article is Raymond Aquino Macapagal's validation work of the Genderism and Transphobia scale by Hill and Willoughby in 2005. So this scale was created to gauge attitudes towards gender conformity negatively. Associations with homonegativity, homopositivity, and a measure of intergroup contact with trans people were used to examine the construct validity of the scale. To explain by comparing the GTS scores to measure of attitudes towards gay people, such as the homonegativity scale or HNS and the homopositivity scale or HPS, Makapagal intended to prove the convergent validity of GTS. In this article, Makapagal put forth the hypothesis that GTS scores will correlate negatively with HPS or homopositivity scale and positively with homonegativity scale or HNS. Following Gordon Allport's contact hypothesis, the GTS scores were also correlated with the reported number of trans people in the respondents' friendship network. According to Macapagal, those who have more transgender acquaintances will perform worse on the GTS, and additionally, this study was used to confirm the traditional findings that men were more trans negative than women. Last but not the least, Macapagal used a total of 188 undergraduate students from the University of the Philippines as respondents in this study, with a mean age of 18.3 years. Of these respondents, 84 identified as men and three as women. The majority of the respondents identified as homosexual, followed by heterosexual, followed by homosexual and bisexual. The validation study's findings confirmed that Macapagal's initial hypotheses were accurate. The HPS or Homo Positivity Scale scores have a negative correlation with the GPS scores and a positive correlation with the Homo Negativity Scale. This means that more trans negative individuals were both more Homo negative and less Homo positive, which makes sense. Additionally, there was a negative correlation between HNS and HPS scores, suggesting that persons who were more Homo negative were also less Homo positive. Additionally, there was a negative correlation between the GPS scores and the number of trans friends. So the more trans friends you have, the less homo negative you are, and the more you would perform uh, poorly on the GPS. This implies that, uh, therefore, genuinely lessens prejudice against other people is further bolstered by the outcome. So the results also showed that birth assigned males had mean GTS and homonegativity scales scores that were considerably higher than those of birth assigned females. On the other hand, females performed much better on the homopositivity scales than males. This indicates that birth assigned males were more trans negative, more homonegative, and less homopositive than birth assigned females, as what Macapagal hypothesized, and a long history of literature has documented. This was also anticipated, though. When I was reading, I had similarly anticipated the results of Macapagal. I was aware, and of course, based on literature, that men are more prone than women to have negative opinions towards transgender individuals and homosexuals in general, which can be attributed to the long-standing patriarchal system that have pervaded many societies. Nevertheless, in addition to the study's findings and their implications, this article shows the significance of doing validation studies. The GTS was initially sampled for Canadians, as noted in the article, but through validation tests, the scale's applicability for Filipinos was also increased. This article also shows us to better understand how to carry out validation studies, notably criterion validity via convergent methods. It is certainly reasonable to utilize other well-established measures in conjunction with verifying the validity of a certain measure after seeing and reading about the findings of the study. So, a major takeaway from the article is that before undertaking research, it is important to measure or to make sure that the measures we use have been validated for use in our context and not just from the samples from which they were initially created. To put it another way, the measuring device may accurately capture the performance of a specific set of people, but it might not do so for other groups of people. This observation shows that the majority of the methods we employ in the Philippines were created in other countries, but not generalizing. Um, there is really a low usage of instruments created locally in many research projects that are, evident in the literature. This is not to imply, however, that using foreign measures is bad or negative in some way. But we must keep in mind that the test's construction is strongly influenced by factors like culture and language. So, as a result, a test designed to evaluate constructs for Americans may not measure the same thing for Filipinos. This establishes the need to validate these measures in the local context before utilizing them. So Macapagal's validation study about the GPS is truly remarkable since he was able to demonstrate the appropriateness of using the scale in Philippine setting. Based on this article, we can further emphasize the crucial benefit that validity studies provide, particularly in ensuring that future test users and test takers of a specific measure can have confidence that the test results accurately reflect the participants or the test taker's ability or characteristics. Aside from that, validation studies save time, expenses, and effort to make another measure for a particular attribute when other existing measures can be used if validity can be proven. So finally, Mcpagal was able to demonstrate the scale's potential flaws through the article. One of them is that it was exclusively tested on university students in the Philippines. So that's one major flaw, no, not representative of the population. In this situation, it would also be crucial to evaluate the scale's reliability among populations outside of educational institutions or universities and colleges. It can be said that developing an accurate and useful measure is not simply based on the laborious process that the developers went through to construct and evaluate a scale. This emphasizes the value of conducting validation tests on numerous existing and accessible measures we have as a first choice rather than starting the process of creating a new measure right away. So these are my references. Thank you very much.